Okay. I don't know why I feel nervous trying to film this one. Okay, so hello, welcome back to my life. So I kind of wanted to do a little bit of a mini series, talking a little bit about kind of what I've experienced, what I experienced in my undergraduate career. Today is December 24th, Christmas Eve. I have a couple hours before I need to get ready, but I do want to do 3 videos total about my experience in undergrad, just because I went to 3 schools for undergrad. Just sort of like a quick sort of overview. You know, I went to Haverford for about a month and a half, and then after that I went to El Camino Community College, and then after that I transferred to Loyola Marymount, where I eventually graduated. But I kind of wanted to talk about my experience, because everyone's experience is different. My experience as a first-generation Latina going to school is probably different than, you know, a second-generation person of color, and different than an individual who is white. My experience is different from other first-generation Latinos, you know. So that's kind of what I want the next couple of videos to be about. This first video, I kind of just want to talk about my experience at Haverford. It was a very short-lived experience, but it definitely affected me a lot. So I do want to talk about that. And then my second video, I'll talk about El Camino College. And then I'll talk about, in my third video, my experience at LMU. So that's kind of what I want the next couple of videos to be about. Again, just a brief overview. I do have my laptop here. I wrote a couple of notes, just because I have some notes, just so I don't forget certain things. But again, this video is probably going to be over the course of a couple of days. And yeah, I hope you guys enjoy. If you guys have any questions about my experience or anything, feel free to ask me down below, or on any of my social media if you have my social media accounts. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get it started. I feel like there'll always be this sorry, I have the diffuser in the background, so it makes some noise sometimes. I feel like there's always going to be this perpetual glare because of my window in the back. But, you know, like I said, I wanted to talk a little bit about like what my experience was like in undergrad, where I went to school, why I chose these schools, who goes through 3 damn schools. But you know, I did want to sort of talk about Haverford, why I chose Haverford, why it didn't work out, and things like that. So Haverford is a small liberal arts college out in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. It is a Quaker town. One of the reasons why I chose it was just because it was one of the schools that I visited, and I visited that one the most often. So when I was in high school, as a junior, I was part of this program called College Match, which is a program that helps underprivileged students get sort of different assistance to get into colleges, elite colleges. So they chose sort of the top 10% of underprivileged schools, and those students got free SAT help, free assistance applying to schools, fee waivers for SAT and for applications, and they took us out to schools. So I was scheduled to go to the East Coast trip. That trip was, I don't remember if it was a week or 2 weeks, that took you to different schools on the East Coast. You know, they went to Princeton, they went to Haverford, they went to a bunch of different schools. I was supposed to go on that one, but the week that we were set out to go, right before my grandpa passed away, and I chose not to go anymore because I wanted to be with my family. So I didn't get to go, but shortly after those trips, someone from Haverford actually emailed me and said that they wanted me to come visit. So I decided to go. When I went on that trip, I didn't get to see too much of the school because the person who was hosting me was like in the middle of like their midterms, and then like they had like mono or something, like they were sick, so I didn't get to go really explore the school. Again, shortly after that, I was invited to go back on their multicultural weekend or something like that. I think that's what it was called. So a bunch of students who were, you know, of diverse backgrounds, we all went to that to the school for a weekend. And that weekend I had a blast. You know, I saw students who looked like me, all who were considering going to that school, and you know, we hung out. There's certain individuals from that group that I still follow, like on social media and stuff like that. So, you know, we kind of kept in touch. And I think that was one of the things that sort of pushed me towards going to that school, because I was like, these are the people that I'm going to be with and I like them. They're cool, whatever. So that's kind of one of the things that pushed me towards there. So another thing to keep in mind is that those sort of adults, the people who are in charge of College Match, and my actual college advisor, they were all sort of pushing us students to go to schools on the East Coast, or basically go away from home. So they were telling us, you know, choose these schools, choose these schools. So I finally, you know, I applied to schools, and I will not lie, Haverford was my number one school. It was the school that I was 100% interested in. It was a school that I wanted to go to. It was a beautiful campus, kind of one of the only ones that wasn't in California that I visited. So I was like set to go. I applied and I got in, and I was so excited. Actually, the day that I got in was the day that was a year after my grandpa had passed away. So it felt like fate, kind of, you know, like this is where I'm supposed to go. So, you know, that's what I decided. I decided that that's the school that I wanted to go to. You know, I was super excited, whatever. Leading up to and going to Haverford was interesting. There's a lot of things that I'm gonna like leave out of the video just because of, you know, privacy reasons and stuff like that. But it was hard going to Haverford. Leading up to it, you know, as the days after I graduated high school and sort of like that summer, deciding like, okay, I'm gonna leave my house, I'm gonna leave my family, was really difficult. As a Latina, you know, I was very close to my family. You know, we had parties like every single month at least. My immediate family, I was very close to my mom. I had a cousin that I was really close to, and sort of leaving that all behind was really difficult. You know, there were other factors that sort of played into it, but that was definitely one of my biggest issues. Was I'm going to go to this place all alone. You know, I had some friends who were going to school with people that they knew already, some people that were a little bit closer to home, but I was definitely nervous and definitely scared. When I actually finally went, you know, I went with my mom. She went to like take me and like drop me off or whatever over in Pennsylvania, and it was really difficult right off the bat. That first week, I was in and out of the office with the dean, sort of talking about whether or not I should defer for a year, because I was having panic attacks. I was just really nervous. I didn't feel ready to go, you know, to this new and scary place. And for me, it was really difficult to decide like I'm gonna come to this school again. It was my decision. I definitely decided that I was gonna go to the school. I did get accepted to schools closer to here, but you know, I had made the decision to go to Haverford. You know, but like I said, like leading up was really difficult. Finally going was really difficult, and then, you know, finally like my mom had to leave that week, at the end of that week, and you know, she left, and I was left in my dorm. And this is where things sort of got really hard for me. as the weeks went by, as the days went by while I was there, it was really difficult. I experienced an extreme culture shock. You know, the school that I went to, everywhere from kindergarten all the way up until high school, I was surrounded by people of color. And so going to Lancaster, Pennsylvania was definitely a big culture shock. You know, on my floor, there was one other person of color. Sorry, two other people of color. And one of those people have lived in a similar community their entire lives. And so, I didn't really feel like I could connect to them.
Everyone has friends to eat dinner with, except me.
And they may not have known, but like some of the comments that they made at the time, like really did sort of, they were unconsciously racist remarks, you know, like I was in a mariachi when I was younger, and so they would say things like, I didn't know you were that Mexican, or stuff like that. And it's like, you know, like what am I supposed to say to that? And, you know, for me, being in a mariachi was something that I really loved. It was something that I really enjoyed. I was playing music and I got paid for it, you know, and I loved it. And so having it pointed out in a way that it's not a good thing, was you know, hard, and it was difficult. And again, like these are things that aren't like major, but it sort of points out the otherness that I was, you know what I mean? Like it emphasizes the fact that I don't belong here, that my culture isn't here. So that was one thing that sort of made me feel really alone. And again, there was other things where I can't blame it on them, all of it, you know, like I could have easily educated them, but I was a 17-year-old kid, you know, what was I supposed to do? I didn't really know. I was never placed in a situation like that. And then on top of that, I also isolated myself, you know, there was other things that were going on at the time, and I certainly isolated myself, you know. Again, even after that first week, I was still in and out of the dean's office. Again, sort of talking about deferring and stuff like that, or transferring after the end of the semester, things like that. And so it was really difficult. Eventually the dean sort of got in talks with someone who I think was either a junior or a senior at the time, who was a Latino. And, you know, the dean told that student, like, you need to talk to this girl, basically, like she's going through it, like you need to sort of kind of like a mentor thing. But it was a student of color, and that student eventually introduced me to another group of kiddos that were, you know, juniors and seniors who were Latinos as well. But it was interesting because, you know, they were telling me like, yeah, after like about a year or two, like it gets better, you know, I had the same experience that you did, you know, and they were kind of telling me like, you know, after 2 or 3 years, like you'll feel better. But it was funny because they were a group of friends, like 6 Latinos on campus that, you know, were friends, they were really close-knit, whatever, and they all lived in the same apartment. And it was kind of like, I don't know if you guys realize this, but that's not a good thing. You know what I mean? Like you guys aren't sort of like intermingled with other people. You guys are like sort of pushed into a corner by yourselves, you know? And I'm sure they had friends elsewhere, but like that's sort of like what I saw, you know? Like that's not necessarily a good thing. And then also how they were telling me like, oh, in 2 or 3 years, like you're gonna feel better. And it's like, I don't want to feel better in 2 or 3 years. I want to feel better now, you know? I don't want this feeling to last 2 or 3 years. And to make matters worse, like I was having the worst anxiety. Like I had never experienced anything like that before. It was the first time that I really experienced it. I was throwing up 3 times a day. As soon as I woke up, I'd throw up. As soon as I'd try to go to sleep, I'd throw up. In the middle of the day, I'd be throwing up. I'd have panic attacks. I wasn't eating. I would not eat because I wasn't hungry. You know, I would tell the other students that I had a stomach virus, but really like it's just like I couldn't eat because I would just throw up. I went to the doctor like multiple times at the student health center to like figure out if something was wrong with me, because again, I hadn't experienced anxiety in that way, like constant anxiety attacks. Like I said, like I would isolate myself. I would stay in my room. I wouldn't go out, or if I went out, like it was always by myself. If I went out with the other students, like I was very cautious of like the things that I would say. And it was just really hard, you know. I eventually like sort of I stopped going to classes. I wouldn't do my work, and mind you, again, like the reason why I got into school is because I was part of the top of my class, you know. Like I graduated third in my class. Granted, my class wasn't that big, but still, like, I was a hardworking student. Like, I'm not naturally smart. I'm really not. Like, it's a lot of effort for me to, like, get work done and to study and to do all these things. And so the fact that I wasn't doing my work, like, says a lot. I wasn't putting any effort anymore. Like, I was over it. I was done. Like, I was mentally exhausted. I didn't want to be there. It was really hard for me to be there. And eventually, like, I went to go see a therapist. Like, I didn't tell I don't think I've ever told my parents this, but I didn't, like, I went to go see a therapist at that school. Things got pretty, like, sort of bad for me. I eventually decided, like, I wasn't gonna keep telling my mom how I was feeling or what was going on. You know, for a while, like, I would just tell her, like, oh, like, things are fine, I'm good, whatever, today, like, this happened, and I just, like, wouldn't talk about it. And then eventually, like, I just kind of had like a breakdown, and I told her, like, I hate it here, like, I don't like it here. I don't really remember how things went down, but, you know, eventually, like, I kind of like told her again, like, I wasn't feeling good, I didn't like being here. That was like kind of part of it. But, you know, I started seeing this therapist, and things continued to like not get better for me and how I was feeling, and I was doing certain things. And so she eventually suggested that I speak to the psychiatrist because she didn't know kind of like what else to do to help me. The day before I saw the psychiatrist, I kind of had that breakdown towards my mom. Like, I told her like how I was feeling, and we finally decided like I was gonna be going home later on that semester, a couple of days away, because I already had a flight home because it was fall break, and so I was gonna go for like a week or something. When I went to talk to the psychiatrist, you know, I finally told them what I had been doing, how I felt, and, you know, I talked to them. But then I told them, like, honestly, there's really nothing you can do for me because I'm going home, you know. And that was a big relief for me, going home, or deciding that I was gonna go home. I mean, it was in part a relief, but it was also really hard because talking about it with my mom was, you know, really difficult. It was really hard because I could hear it in her voice, you know, the disappointment, the like, really, like, you're gonna come back after everything. And it was a difficult decision to come back. I'll just say that. I was the first in my family to go to college. I was always seen as like the hope of the family and stuff, and so coming back was kind of like I failed everyone, you know. And so I came back, and it was kind of difficult to really do anything. You know, I came back mid-October, and it's not like I could go to school. I was applying to jobs and no one would hire me, but it was weird coming back home too. You know, it's kind of like I don't feel like I belong here either right now. I felt really out of place. And, you know, my mom would post pictures of me, you know, like she posted the pictures of when I first came back. And, you know, I remember coming, and I had so many bags with me because I borrowed like a suitcase from someone. It's funny, one of the Latina girls that I had met that was like a junior or senior, she lives down the street from me. But anyways, yeah, I borrowed her suitcase because I had so much stuff. And, you know, I came back and I had all these bags, whatever. My mom like got out the car, and she was just like gonna grab my suitcase, and I just like grabbed her, and I just started sobbing. And she didn't. And I think that kind of speaks to the fact of like the experience that I had. No one can understand what I went through while I was out there. And again, like, I'm not telling the full story of like the things that I experienced or whatever, but it was really difficult. Like, and I keep saying that, like, what else am I supposed to say? But it was really hard for me to be out there. And again, like, I wouldn't sleep, I wouldn't eat. I had lost weight while I was out there, which is the complete opposite of what's supposed to happen to freshmen, right? But more than anything, it was just, I was so depressed. I hated everything. I didn't want to be there. And I think the thing to sort of point out here is that multicultural weekend that I went to when I was visiting the school was so, not manipulative, but it was like, that's so not what the school is like. You know, they legit brought in like a herd of diverse individuals and was like, come see us. But it's like, that's not what the school looks like at all. And you know, nothing against the school. Again, that school is a great school for those who want to be there and who feel comfortable being there, but it wasn't a good school for me anymore. But you know, I came home and I could see it in my mom's face. And you know, like, I think there's only been one time where I brought it up to her where, like, you know, I told her, like, I saw, like, you know, I know that you were disappointed in me when I came back. And I don't really remember what she said, but you know, she kind of denied it. But it's like, I know you don't want to say it because I'm your daughter and you don't want to hurt me or whatever, but I could see it, you know. And then it was so much harder because I went to go visit my my high school and I went to go visit the college counselor that had, you know, seen me through my years. And I remember like talking to her about it, and she's like, I heard that this happened, I heard that you came back, like, what's going on? And I tried talking to her, and mind you, like, she's a white woman, you know, and she was just like, you just kind of need to power through it. And it's like, no, like, I don't have to power through that, you know. I don't have to feel uncomfortable, you know, in the school that I'm going to. Like, I don't have to. And she was like, no, like, you have to go back, like, what are you doing? And she basically told me, she's like, you don't have a choice. She's like, you're going back, like, we're gonna find a flight for you and you're gonna go back and you're gonna finish, and like, that's it. And I remember leaving her office, like, feeling so defeated, feeling like I'm going back. And I was so scared because I didn't want to go back. You know, I remember talking to my mom, and again, I don't remember the full details of it, but I remember like her telling me, like, no, like, if you don't want to go back, like, you're not gonna go back, like, that's it. And so I didn't, you know, I didn't go back. But my relationship with her was definitely strained, and it was really difficult because the only times that she would talk to me was when she wanted something from me. So she lost a chaperone for one of the trips that the students have, a 3-day trips, and so she asked me to do it. She needed more tutors for senior thesis, so she asked me to do it. But after that, like, she kind of didn't help me out after that, and so it was really difficult kind of dealing with that. And then on top of that, like, there were family members who were like, no, like, you need to go back, like, what are you doing back here? Like, you need to go finish schooling, like, what are you doing out here? Like, your family didn't sacrifice this and that for you to be here and all this stuff. And that was another thing that was really difficult for me, because it's like, you don't know what I went through, you don't know what I had to deal with, you don't know how I felt, you don't know anything about my experience there. Like, you are a family member who didn't talk to me before I even left. Like, we barely had any conversations ever other than hi and bye and how are you. And now you have the audacity to tell me what I need to do with my education. Like, no. It was so frustrating to have this conversation constantly and to have to explain myself when really, like, I don't have to explain myself. You know, like, this is my experience. I don't want to go to that school anymore, so I'm choosing not to go there anymore. And, you know, it was really hard trying to sort of explain, like, why, when I couldn't fully explain why, the same way that I can't fully explain why here. Like, it was a really hard time for me to try and sort of even be home and be comfortable. And, you know, again, like, I spent like all of November, half of October, all of December, and half of January just kind of like sitting at home, you know, not doing anything, feeling sorry for myself for the most part, you know. I felt like there was a lot of backlash, you know, coming from family members, coming from my college advisor, and it was also really hard to deal with that, you know. Granted, I did have a lot of people who supported me, you know. There was people who were like, no, like, you know, you need to do what's comfortable for you. Like, if you don't feel comfortable there, like, I completely understand. Like, you need to do what's best for you. And that's exactly what I did, you know. At the end of the day, like, I realized no one else is going to have to experience or endure what I have to experience. No one else is going to experience the consequences of my decision other than me. I would not be where I am today if I had finished at Haverford. There's no way. I wasn't going to finish that semester with good grades at all. I was going to fail every single class that I was in because I wasn't doing work, I wasn't paying attention, I wasn't going to class, I wasn't doing anything productive. I was skipping like every other day. So I mean, you know, I graduated from LMU with, you know, magna cum laude. I would not have done that at all if I had stayed at Haverford. There's no possible way. I was not in a healthy mindset at all. At all. That was like one of the biggest learning lessons that I had coming from Haverford was like, I need to do what's best for me because I'm the one who's going to have to deal with the consequences. You know, I can't keep making decisions just because like big decisions just because like, you know, it might affect my mom or it might affect my dad, or what will my dad think? What will my mom think? What will, you know, the person I'm talking to think? What will my friends think? It's like, no, what's best for me? You know, what do I need to move forward? And that's what I did. You know, I came back and I sort of reevaluated my priorities and reevaluated like what I needed from a school, what I needed from my peers, you know. And the fact is that, again, Haverford is a beautiful, amazing school. It was great when I visited. It's great for the students that are there and who feel comfortable. But for me, it wasn't what I needed. I couldn't deal with the culture shock. And again, other Latino students have been able to deal with that culture shock, have been able to power through, you know. The kids that I met over there that were Latinos, they suffered through 4 years of that culture shock. They told me. And they finished, you know, they got their degrees and they probably moved on to do better things. But I knew in that moment I wouldn't be able to do the same thing that they did. People called me weak. People said that I wasn't strong enough for it. People said that I wasn't going to finish school. People said a lot of mean things. But at the end of the day, like, I moved forward, you know. I am where I am because of those decisions that I made. Maybe it was a mistake. Maybe it was the best decision I ever made. Who knows? But this is a decision that I made, you know. And I came back and I fought harder and I did what I could. And yeah. So all that to say that was my experience at Haverford. You know, it's not as detailed as it could be or whatever, but that's kind of where I was at, you know. That was 2013. I graduated high school in 2013, and you know, that's kind of what happened a couple months later. And then after that, I came back and I decided to go to El Camino Community College, and that'll be in the next video, I guess, what my experience was like at Elco. But yeah, I mean, if there are any other questions about my experience at Haverford, feel free to ask me. I will try to answer as much as possible.